Quick warning, I kind of had to rethink and plan out some of this video with all of the moves that the Falcons have made in the last couple days. We're going to honestly just start and talk with them. So yeah, the most forgotten division in the NFL, that's what I said in the title. But I'm also just going to cut the crap. It's also kind of just the worst division in the NFL overall. But I think it may have gotten a lot more interesting, especially over the last couple days. We could just take this team by team and set some expectations. Let's go ahead and start with one of the two teams that I am interested in that I've been talking about from the beginning of this episode, the Falcons. The main reason I feel great intrigue with the Falcons is because despite a wild card draft, they accomplished two very important things. They addressed their number one position of need, and they also got better. They accomplished both of these things by signing Kirk Cousins in free agency and drafting Michael Penix Jr. in the NFL draft. When the Michael Penix Jr. draft pick was made, it was a shock. I felt dazed and confused. Charlie was everywhere, but luckily after careful consideration and medication for my PTSD, I settled on this pick a lot more. The most important position on the football field will no longer be an issue for the Atlanta Falcons anymore. Probably. They did sign someone who is coming off an ACL tear and is like almost 40, and they did draft someone who had like 4 major surgeries on their limbs in the last 4 years, so it's still a probably on that. Other than that, what is there not to love? I mean, the defense has had plenty of issues for a little while now, but Matthew Judon, they just traded for him, only gave up a second or a third round pick. I haven't gone over all the trade details, but I know it wasn't, Jesse Bates or something like that for him. So pretty good bargain there. And then signing Justin Simmons in free agency, they now have probably the best safety duo in the entire league, depending on how Justin Simmons is going to do after kind of a whatever season with the Denver Broncos. You look at the offensive line, it is a fantastic offensive line. You look at the weapons, there's Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier is still a good number 2. There's plenty of weapons on this team, and then the offensive line, as I mentioned, accompanied with that, is a success factory for any quarterback that knows what they're doing, not Desmond Ridder included, because he has no idea what he's doing. There's no real reason that the Falcons should miss the playoffs this season, and there's no reason that the main offensive trio of Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London doesn't combine for minimum 3,500 plus yards. So yeah, if you're in Atlanta, you're going to have a good season, probably. Now we'll move on to a team from this division that I often forget about and don't like to watch very much, the Saints. I'm just not a fan of Derek Carr. There's a lot of problems on this team, and frankly, he's who I worry about the most. I'm honestly excited to see this receiving core. Chris Olave looks fantastic. I've already discussed Juwan Johnson and his potential for a breakout. Rashid Shaheed is consistently a treat to watch, and oh my buckets, this offensive line is not good. I love the Talaise Fuanga pick in the draft, but other than that, there's not a lot to work with on the offensive line here. Trevor Penning has been a total flop. Cesar Ruiz has a lot to catch up on. Eric McCoy is probably the only other solid starter on this offense. Other than that, Lucas Patrick, being honest, I don't even know who that is. And then, you might be sitting here saying, guy on the screen, we have an all-pro caliber right tackle in Ryan Ramczyk. Well, Ryan Ramczyk is injured and not too sure how much of the season he's going to be able to play. It's not looking good. I checked the injury report. Go look at it yourself if you want more details, but again, a lot of problems on this offensive line. I don't think Derek Carr is going to be able to make up for those issues. Moving on to the defense, their D-line is just what it is. The only true exciting pieces of this group are Chase Young and Brian Brzee. Maybe Isaiah Foskey takes a step up, but I doubt that. As fun as it is to imagine that Chase Young has a crazy 14-sack breakout season or something like that, I also am more inclined to believe what the inevitable is, and that is he's just Jadeveon Clowney 2.0. Which neither are bad players, by the way. It's that both of them entered the league with insane expectations, and both also had a lot of potential, but never quite reached the potential that they have. That's how I feel about Chase Young. He's a great run stopper when he tries. It's not his strong suit if he's not really caring, but when he does, he's physical and athletic enough to do it. When it comes to rushing the passer, it's kind of just using athleticism at this point to get his way. He's got a couple moves up his sleeve, but not enough to consistently get the job done, and he's also struggled with staying healthy. So yeah, other than Brzee and Chase Young, I'm not super excited about this defensive line, but there are a lot of very interesting pieces in the secondary that hopefully can make up for the lackluster D-line that they have. Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor, Marshawn Lattimore still there when he's healthy. Kool-Aid McKinstry they drafted. Couple decent I know Tyrann Mathieu still there, so a good secondary group. As long as they're coached up properly, you can maybe mask some of the issues you have on the defensive line, but at the end of the day, just look at it as a win for them that their secondary is pretty solid. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints just have another Saints-style year. 7 or so wins, sign some old vets in free agency, shoot for 8 wins next season. But I'm going to be honest to Saints fans here. I also wouldn't be surprised if the Dennis Allen project doesn't work out, if Derek Carr falls off a complete cliff, they decide to just collapse the whole thing and restart and have like 3 to 4 wins this season and just say screw it, because this team doesn't have much of a future. They're just keeping themselves from, getting decapitated, but they're still bleeding. They're still bleeding pretty bad. With that being said, I'm not really projecting the Saints to make the playoffs or do anything special this season at all. They haven't since Breeze was there, and I don't see a reason why this season is any different. Despite some pieces on this team that I am excited for and like, I think the core foundation, both, in the trenches on offense and defense, are extremely lackluster. And then the quarterback, Derek Carr, just isn't going to save the day. Anyways, let's move on to another team that I do like at this moment, the Carolina Panthers. New head coach, more O-line, more weapons, maintain top of the league defensive coordinator in Ejiro Evero. And although I was talking a little smack about him earlier, they brought Jadeveon Clowney in, who is coming back from one of his best seasons on the Ravens and is also going home. He's from Carolina, so that's an interesting little story piece for him. I mean, the Panthers have made a lot of correct moves throughout this offseason to make the team better and improve them on paper, but I can't help to feel like this slight gut feeling that they really nailed this whole process. It's tough to project what guys like Xavier Legette and Jonathan Brooks are going to do on a new team, coming as rookies and everything, but this was a really solid draft class with a lot of high upside, and I think that all the players that they brought in from the draft, a lot of the ones I've talked about, like Jatavion Sanders, Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Legette, those are guys that I think are going to be really good professional football players. I think they nailed those picks, and it is a little bit of a gut feeling. I'm not saying that the Panthers are going to the Super Bowl this year or anything, but looking at the core pieces of this team, you get some better play out of Bryce Young, which is fully expected, especially with a coach change to someone that saved Geno Smith's career, saved Baker Mayfield's career, and was honestly a completely underrated head coaching candidate in this carousel this last offseason. And then you look at some other additions to this team, like, Damian Lewis, who's been a rock-solid guard for the Seahawks for a little while now, Robert Hunt, who is one of the better right guards in the league. Ike Ekwonu's entering his 3rd year. He's an athletic freak. I imagine he'll take a big step up too, especially with new offensive line coaches in play. I just believe in Dave Canales. I believe in Legette and Deontay Johnson more and more. I'm hopeful for the offensive line. Those guys are fantastic. Taylor Moton has been an absolute rock for over half a decade now. So there's still plenty of holes on this team, and it still won't be pretty, but I feel like it's safe to tell the people of Carolina, you can turn the TV on again and watch. It's not going to be that bad. It's going to be interesting. They're going to have a lot of good games where they're close. They're going to fight tooth and nail for wins. They're not going to get a lot. I'm saying maybe 5 or 6 wins this season, but it won't be nearly as big of a disaster as it was last season. Not even close. I'm sure about that. I don't think the team is making the playoffs this year, but setting a ceiling at like 7 wins isn't impossible for the Panthers. I mean, that's the best outcome, but if we're going to be believers in some pretty rational things happening, like Dave Canales remaining a solid play caller and developer, and Bryce Young being 10% better than he was last season, things like that, this team should be able to achieve about 7 wins. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that 5 wins is the more likely outcome. And on to the final team, which I will admit has grown on me this last season, but another team I often forget about, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like Baker. I don't think he's their forever quarterback, but the dude can play ball. Not to mention, Baker still gets to work with a pretty solid duo in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Both very talented players, but neither are 100% of what they used to be, but should still help out in this receiving core an immense amount. And then an interesting running back room with, Rachaad White helping out in the receiving game. Chase Edmonds, Sean Tucker, both some solid younger pieces there to rotate in and out. Bucky Irving, who could potentially split reps in that running back room with Rachaad White, especially just as a pure runner. And I have some concern with the depth on the offensive line, but Luke Goedeke has proven he's a fine enough starter. And not to mention, Tristan Wirfs is a top 3 tackle in the league, just overall, however you want to look at it, he is. And then you move on to the interior with the rookie Graham Barton, who's looked fantastic and was one of those players I projected to just be plug and play and that he was going to be fine in the league, even in his first year. I have some concerns with Cody Mock stepping up. It looks like he's probably going to start this season. The play strength hasn't fully caught up there with him, and that's something he's going to have fixed by the time week 1 starts, or else it's going to be trouble for them. He's going to get beat on the interior quite a bit, but I believe he can do that. It's just, I don't know if this is the year exactly. Cody Mock wasn't a player that was a hill I was dying on, but someone I thought was interesting and liked in the pre-draft process a season or 2 ago whenever he was drafted. Then on to the defense. There just really aren't any pass rushers I truly care about on the exterior. I'm not even going to mention and care about that. Kalijah Kancey in his second year should look a lot better. Vita Vea on the interior, he's been amazing for years and years now. That's a great duo, but again, they're going to struggle a lot with the pass rushing group that they have this season. Then again, with the secondary, it's just kind of meh. Antoine Winfield is another top 3 player at their respective position. He's one of the better safeties in the league. But other than that, I don't feel super strongly about the secondary. Zion McCollum's a young talent with a lot of physical traits and high upside in that regard, but not a great secondary or defense overall either. The offense has some nice weapons and a solid enough floor, although I do worry about the lackluster defense and how they'll hold up against the improved passing games, not just in the NFL, but within their own division. Like I was talking about, the Falcons are a real threat now. That's something people have to realize. This is a real team that you have to beat. And then Carolina's going to give you hell too. The Saints, I don't know. All in all, I feel like the Falcons are going to come out on top. The Buccaneers are going to be second, probably miss the playoffs. We'll see how that plays out. There's plenty of teams in the NFC that have multiple teams in their division that are going to be clearly in the playoff race. So I don't know how the number 2 team in this division is going to do. But then after that, it's a toss-up between the Saints and the Panthers. It just kind of depends on upside and floor and who steps up this season. I mean, I point out specific flaws on teams and say, hey, there's a hole here. And then, the season starts and some undrafted rookie free agent is starting at left guard at that spot you were just talking about, and they have an all-pro caliber year. And there's just no way to predict that at all. So I'm saying a lot of stuff, doing some predictions, but at the end of the day, anything could happen. But that is, for the most part, how I feel about all the teams in this division. Thank you guys so much for watching.